Hi everybody, good morning or good afternoon depending on where you are in the world. My name is Carl Soule. I'm a business development manager based in the Singapore office, and I just returned from NAB 2014, the big broadcasting show in Las Vegas every year. This was actually my 16th year attending NAB, so I've seen the show go through a lot of changes over the years. And we made some really exciting announcements the week prior to NAB, and NAB was really the first time people could see live demonstrations of some of the features that are upcoming in the next releases of the video tools inside of Creative Cloud. So we've designed this session to kind of give you guys a sense of, what NAB was like, kind of walk through some of the new features, but I definitely want to make this kind of an interactive session. This is designed as a way to, if you have specific questions about some of the upcoming features, I'll be happy to try and answer those. The one thing I'm not going to be able to answer today is when. When these new features are coming out. That information hasn't been revealed yet. We've been kind of holding off on that. I think the correct answer right now is we'll release them as soon as they're ready. So these are kind of a sneak peek. They're definitely features that are upcoming in the next release of tools like Premiere Pro, After Effects, SpeedGrade, and so on. But I can't give you any more information about when exactly they're going to be in your hands. The great news is if you're a Creative Cloud member, as soon as they're ready, you'll get a notification that there are new releases available, and you'll be able to download and install those right away. So the moment they're ready, if you're a Creative Cloud member today, you'll have access to these new features as soon as they're ready. Okay? Now, if you haven't already, go ahead and take a moment and fill in the questions that are on the screen there. And we'll jump in and very quickly get started. Basically, the way we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so is I'm going to run through just a couple of quick pictures just to give you guys a sense of what NAB was like. And then we'll jump right into some different product demos. I'll start with Adobe Prelude, kind of work through some of the new features there, including a new iPad application called Prelude Live Logger that's available today. We'll go in and talk about the new features inside of Adobe Premiere. And then we'll also show some of the different integration points that have been added between Premiere Pro and After Effects. I'll talk a little bit about some of the new features inside of After Effects, and then we'll wrap up by discussing SpeedGrade, Audition, and Adobe Media Encoder. So with that, let's go ahead and get started, and we'll go ahead and get my screen shared. And let me jump over to the Connect Pod here, and very quickly I'll get my screen started here. All right. So, very quickly to jump in, what was NAB like? Well, it was a busy show for us. We definitely had a lot of attendance, and there was a lot of information that people were asking questions about. I have to say, working for Adobe for as many years, the conversation really had changed this year quite a bit. We had more people than ever, instead of coming up and kind of asking if Premiere Pro was ready to take on the needs for a broadcaster. We more had the questions of, we're in the process of adding 30 seats of Premiere Pro, and we just have some questions about how to properly deploy it with other tools. So we had not only a huge presence, this is looking from one of the podiums during one of the presentations here at NAB. You can see that we had people kind of extending out into the aisles. But if you also looked around the show floor, you would find Adobe technology, Premiere Pro, SpeedGrade running in, I think it was something like over 150 partner booths scattered across the North Hall, South Hall, Central Hall, upstairs, downstairs, all the different halls. We had different technology showcased in just about every place at the NAB show. So this is one of the biggest shows. I think there's something like 100,000 people in attendance worldwide that come to Vegas for this show, and Adobe, we had a huge presence there. There's tons of interviews and content that you're going to find online even. Pro Video Coalition actually has a number of different interviews if you're interested in kind of following up after this. All of the different product managers, you can see in the upper left corner, that's Patrick Palmer. He's been a long-time part of the team heading up SpeedGrade, and he also now takes on duties with Adobe Media Encoder and works with the other video teams to really do the tight integration that we've been doing. You can see over on the picture on the right, that's Patrick Palmer and Michael Lewis. Michael is the product manager for Adobe Prelude. So, all the different product managers come to NAB. They all like to interact and talk with the customers, as well as do different types of interviews. So if you're interested in some more kind of a forethought of why we're going in the direction we're going, I would definitely recommend checking out places like the NAB website, like Adobe TV, or like Pro Video Coalition, as places where you can get more information if you want to hear it directly from the product manager's mouths. Now, to jump in and get started, one of the things that is actually available, I can talk about the timing for, is a new tool called Adobe Prelude Live Logger. And this is specifically an application that runs on the iPad. It is designed for anybody that's doing live production work. And if you're currently paying somebody to sit with like a legal pad and make notes during takes, or if you're doing any type of presentations dealing with like sports, this tool was actually used for the Olympics quite a bit in Sochi, because it gave the loggers, the people standing next to the cameras, an ability to very quickly make notes. You can create special templates. Over here on the left-hand side, you can see kind of a very basic idea of a template, just making good shot, bad shot as the time code is rolling here. This is an example over on this side of the screen. Actually has some different specific icons. These icons were actually created in Adobe Illustrator, zipped up as a package and imported into Prelude Live Logger to give specialty buttons for basketball games. And this is actually a template that you can download and install, and it comes with the instructions on how you can make and create your own templates. So the basic idea of Prelude Live Logger is this has some tools that allows you to synchronize your iPad with the time code on your camera, so that while your camera is rolling, you can sit and actually take notes and push buttons as to what is actually going on in front of the camera. And later on, there's a very easy way of synchronizing these notes. So basically, if you have, like, let's say you let the camera roll for 30 minutes and you're trying to get the highlights of, a football match, for example, Prelude Live Logger will actually do that while the match is going on, and then you can take that information and synchronize it in Adobe Prelude to instantly generate a list of highlights, of subclips, so you automatically cuts down all the work that's usually it's associated with, taking the 30 minutes of video that you have in the camera, taking it into something, and then figuring out where all the good bits are. You can actually do that while the event is going on. So it's a really, really fantastic tool. In fact, I'm just going to jump out of PowerPoint here for a second, and I'm going to jump over to Adobe Prelude. I can show you how easy it is to synchronize this. So basically, when you're done, when you have a list of these, these markers that you've created in Prelude Live Logger, inside of Prelude, this is our logging, rough cutting tool that we have. This is really designed for people who are just getting started, people who are in kind of that producer-editor role. A term I heard on the show floor quite a bit this year was the term predator, to mean this person who is not quite a full craft editor, but really has the vision of what the story is going to be and wants to try and impart that to the actual editing staff. So here I am in Prelude. I've actually already gone through and I've ingested some different clips. So I've got a GoPro clip here, and we were using Prelude Live Logger while this clip was being shot. And so we want to actually find all the different good jumps in this. So if I were to start playing this, you can see that it's a helmet cam shot. We can see different people as they're skiing along here. And we want to be able to find all the good bits that while this was being shot, the different jumps. Now I could log this manually. I could go through and watch this entire clip, and I could find all the good jumps here, and I could use Prelude to actually make those subclips. But now with the Live Logger metadata information that we have, basically at the end of using Live Logger, I can come, I push a button and it will upload an XMP file, just strictly a metadata file. It's really, really tiny, measured in K, not megabytes. It uploads it to your cloud account. And from here, I can actually come in to this special panel here called Unassociated Metadata. And there's two buttons here. One is to download this from the Creative Cloud. So if I had uploaded this through my iPad to the Creative Cloud, I could push this button, and this will give me a link as to all of the different applications, or all the different metadata that I've synchronized with the cloud. Now right now it's asking me for authentication. I'm not going to go through and do that at the moment. I do have a local copy of this as well, and it is possible to, through iTunes, you can synchronize and store your metadata locally in a file. So I'll go ahead and click this other button here for doing this locally. I'll come into, let's see where my content is here. We'll just quickly jump back here. Looks like it would be right in here. And you can see here I have an XMP file. This is the snowboard jumps file. I'll go ahead and import this and say, yes, I want to use this. Once I do this, I can choose to apply this to my open clip, and I can also choose how I want to synchronize this. So let's say I don't have timecode synchronization between my iPad and my camera. I could do something like make my first marker, know that that's like a specific event, like maybe the person in front of the camera claps their hands or something, and I could use that as my start time. I'm just going to go ahead and say apply to using marker start time and apply to the open clip. And you'll notice what this instantly does is it takes this clip and it separates it out and creates these different markers here with different pieces of metadata. So I now have the different start times. Here's a jump, and you can see it's automatically logged that. I've got another jump here. I've got another jump here. And all of these are automatically logged during the actual events. And so very quickly I now have 4 markers that I can use for generating subclips, and I can instantly get my highlights on a really long piece of video without having to go through manually and watch every single piece of this. Again, this new live logging application, something that definitely got a lot of work out at the Winter Olympics in Sochi this year. There were a number of different broadcasters that were actually taking advantage of it. Now, while we're inside of Prelude, I'm going to go ahead and open up another clip here. And I'm also going to open up a new panel that we've introduced inside of Prelude. This is something called the tagging panel. And I'll just go ahead and kind of dock it over here in the corner here. Now, I'm using like really bright buttons here so that you can kind of get a sense as to what this is designed to do. This is designed as a way of adding information while you're watching clips so that you can actually just hit play on a piece of video, you can watch sections of it, and you can just tap these buttons and instantly create these markers. So if I'm looking for somebody who does a successful jump, I could click this big blue jump button and it creates a marker. If somebody falls, I could click the scrub button and create a scrub marker. Now this panel is fully customizable, and again, this is something that you can share it, you can upload it to your Creative Cloud account so that if you have a team of people that all you need to use the same markers, just click this little button down here and that would enable that. I'm going to go ahead and edit this panel. We'll go ahead and add an additional button here. Since we're doing some helicopter flyaway stuff, I'll go ahead and add a big button here. I can go in and pick what color I want this. We'll make this kind of a nice yellow color. And I can go ahead and give this a description here. We'll call this one like flyover, good shot. We can give it a description, and we can also say this is for shorter takes. So for this, we're going to say instead of 300 frames, maybe we're only going to do 60 frames. And so by doing this, again, this gives me a nice, quick and easy layout where I can add these different buttons in a grid pattern here so that instead of having to type the same information over and over again, I can quickly tag shots with important information while I'm working. All right, now the last thing I'm going to quickly show you here is I'm going to go ahead and generate a rough cut here. And we'll go ahead, instead of calling this untitled rough cut, I'm going to call this one morning. And rough cutting is a big part of what Prelude is all about. The idea of a rough cut is just to simply get a bunch of clips in sequential order so that we can kind of see how the story is going to kind of be told here. Now, working with rough cuts in the past, Prelude offered the ability to kind of rearrange clips. So I can take clips and I can move them around. I can play back and I can see how two clips are going to cut together by hitting play on the timeline here. But it didn't really give me any opportunity for doing any type of like trims. So what we've added in this new release that's upcoming is the ability to do what are called ripple trim edits. So the whole ripple trim edit function that was in Premiere Pro, there's a simplified version of it that now exists inside of Prelude, so that as the person who marked out these subclips, if they suddenly look at a clip and they say, you know what, this clip's a little bit too long, I want to trim it back, they can do it right from this panel. And we actually get kind of a two-up display to show us what is going on while we're doing any given edit. So I can kind of see where the edit point is, see where I'm trimming, and it gives me some nice information about like what type of time code is going on there. Again, if you're not familiar with Prelude, these rough cuts are fully compatible with Adobe Premiere Pro. In fact, you can simply send them directly over to Premiere Pro on the same system, or there's an exporting option where you can export this and then open it up and import it into a Premiere Pro sequence. So, again, Prelude, just like the name says, it's kind of the beginning part of the workflow, massaging the clips, getting them organized, renaming them, adding tags and markers so that when you do searches, you can find what you're looking for. And then finally kind of starting to tell the story a little bit, assembling everything together. Okay, so that's some of the new stuff that is coming soon for Adobe Prelude. I'm going to go ahead and jump over into some of the new stuff between After Effects and Premiere Pro. Jennifer, really quickly, are we seeing any questions in the chat pod that anybody is urgently asking? Okay. All right, feel free again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in at any point in time. I'll be happy to just answer those via voice during my presentation here. Okay, all good so far. I see one message so far. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm over in a kind of the next generation of Premiere Pro. And I want to start by just kind of highlighting and give a little bit of special thanks to some of the footage that we're using here today. These are actually clips that are from a new mini-series that's happening on the Discovery Channel. They were kind enough to provide us with some of the footage for this. And right now I want to just start with something that is kind of it's a common enough problem. If you're using clips, especially if you're dealing with clips from some of these new sources and things like raw sources, you're going to find that sometimes you're doing the same grading or color correction over and over again. So here I've got an example of a clip with these two horses, and this was shot using a Phantom camera. If you're not familiar with Phantom, those are the really high-speed cameras that get that wonderful slow motion that we sometimes see with speed ramps. And you can see that we're using the same clip in 3 different locations on the timeline. Now, of course, the clip, the Phantom camera generally does, when you shoot in this special RAW format, this is called a .cine file, which is a special format directly from the Phantom camera. It does come in kind of dark sometimes. That's kind of the nature of the camera. It's shooting such a fast speed that the color is sometimes a little bit, everything's a little bit dark. So we need to do some fixing of this footage. Now, instead of having to fix all 3 instances of it here, we thought it would be really nice to be able to just apply a color effect across an entire clip. So here I've got this instance of this clip. This is kind of what we call a master clip in my timeline sequence. If I double click on this, you can see this opens up in the source monitor here. And what we've added is a new ability of what we call master clip effects. So what I'm going to do with this clip open in the source monitor, I'm going to go to my effects panel here, and just to do this quickly, I'll go ahead and grab the fast color corrector. It is now possible to take a fast color corrector or any effect in the bin, including LUTs, using Lumetri looks from SpeedGrade. We can drag those and drop them right onto the source clip itself. And if I come into the effect controls, I'm now working in the effect controls for a clip in my bin. So this is something that's different from what you would normally see where I would have to do this on each individual clip and then copy and paste the attributes. I now have one master clip effect that affects every instance of this clip. So it's now possible to actually put effects on clips directly in the bin and just have that effect ripple through any instance, any place that that particular instance appears in the timeline. We have the ability to, we'll see that ripple through and update immediately. Now one question I get is, well, what if I only want to have this on like 10 instances and I want to have a different sequence and I want to create, use the same clip but use a different master clip effect for that? Sure, duplicate the clip in the bin. So if I, for example, right-clicked on this and chose duplicate on this clip in the bin, I could have two separate instances on my bin. I could give them each separate names within the project. And when I do that, I could have different master clip effects on different versions of this master clip. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make some changes to this. Make sure that you guys can see this on Connect. I'm going to make this really kind of exaggerated here. I'll start by just playing with the gamma levels on this clip quite a bit here so that you can see this really update on the window there. Hopefully you guys can all see that. And I'm also just going to give this kind of a little bit of a blue tint here so that you can see that as well. Now we're looking at the program monitor. If we were to look at the source monitor as well, you would see that that same color effect is being applied to the entire clip here in the source monitor. And if I come across and I start to click on these different instances in the timeline, you'll see that that same color effect is now being applied across all the different times that that master clip is being used, all the different bits and pieces of footage from that longer master clip. We're now seeing that being applied across everything. So that's the idea of master clip effects. We think it's a huge new concept inside of Premiere Pro. I think it's really going to enable people to start to do some color adjustment before they even start putting clips on the timeline. And it simplifies your sequence down quite a bit. There's no more need for an adjustment layer to make things like that happen. Okay, I'm going to jump over to the next thing that I want to show you guys, and this is really big for anybody who deals with graphics on a regular basis. Normally, graphics are something that an After Effects artist might go through and create a graphics package. They might have to create multiple instances of some sort of an animated graphic, each one for each person's name, or for something like this where we have sort of the side third stylized graphic here. You can see there's a lot of different text layers in here of where this graphic is currently being used. The valley, the location in France, and then there's the person's name kind of along the curve here. Now, if I see a mistake inside of Premiere, I would have to go over to After Effects to correct that. If I'm an After Effects artist and I need 20 different versions of this, I would need 20 different comps, each one with different text. And there's some really nice scripts out there that kind of can help with this workflow, but still it's one of those kind of cumbersome processes where in a lot of cases the editor wants the ability to just be able to quickly type in and correct for a name. What we've done is this same idea of a master clip effect for putting things like color effects on a video clip also now applies to After Effects compositions. So the After Effects artist can pick and choose what layers they want to have as editable text layers inside of Premiere. So as an example here, I'll go ahead and load one of these. Oh, and another just a small new feature that we've added, Premiere Pro now supports the transparency grid just like After Effects. So when we have something with an alpha channel, you can tell and you can see it right away without having to put it down on the timeline. Now I've gone ahead and loaded this as a source clip here. If I jump over to the effect controls, guess what I've got? I have all the different layers that the After Effects artists have left unlocked are now live text layers inside of Premiere. So I can come in here and instead of having this be my counterpart Wanjung Kim up in the Seoul office, I can go ahead and say that this is me. It's not me, by the way. I haven't skied and done anything like what this guy is doing in the video for probably 15 years. But there you can see I've changed the text. I'll go ahead and zoom out. And if I zoom in to the source monitor, you can now see there's the live text has actually been updated here inside of Premiere Pro. So this really simplifies the workflow. Instead of having to have 20 different comps, each one with specific text involved, I can have one comp, bring that into Premiere Pro, and here's an example where I've actually duplicated this and made a couple of different copies of this. So in here I could go ahead and give a different one here. I'll go ahead and type in Jennifer's name here. And so now you can very quickly see, I've got, here's one with my name, here's a different one with Jennifer's name. So the editor has the power now to use this as a true template and be able to quickly make changes and modifications to it. Now what this looks like over on the After Effects side, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to After Effects briefly. For those of you who use After Effects on a regular basis, here is a copy of this composition here. You can see, this has the curve. It's got some of the different text here. And basically inside of this comp, whatever layers I leave unlocked, for example, if I wanted to lock in the location, so this couldn't be used anywhere else, I would simply just lock that layer here. Where I find the choice to make this a template, it's a little bit buried. Let me quickly walk you through it. If I go into Composition Settings and go to the Advanced tab, here is the checkbox that you want to turn on to convert this into a template. Now for those AE artists that have like hundreds of comps in a single AE project, you are going to want to save out that specific comp to a new AE project file. This works best with a single project with a single comp in it. In fact, you'll notice that this says something about only template compositions in this project will be visible to Premiere. So when you import that After Effects project into Premiere, it will actually automatically hide any comps that do not have this box checked. So it's possible to have nested comps, all other types of comps within your project, and just know that those will be hidden to the Premiere editor. They won't be able to see those comps. They'll only be able to see the comps that you've checked this box. Okay, now let me jump back over to Premiere for a second. We'll get back to After Effects in just a bit, but I want to talk about one other really exciting new feature inside of Premiere. One of the long-standing requests that we've had in Premiere is better abilities to do masking and tracking. And we thought long and hard about this. We thought about making something that would really just apply to people doing things like editing content for censorship, blurring logos, blurring people's faces that you don't have rights and clearances for. We've actually taken it a step further than that, and this is something that is now built into just about every different effect inside of Premiere Pro. In fact, it is built into every single effect inside of Premiere Pro. There's no just about involved in it. It is absolutely everything. So here, just as a quick starting example, I've got a clip where we've got this young lady walking across the screen here. She doesn't look too happy that we're filming her today, and she's kind of ruining the ambiance of the scene because she's obviously very unhappy that we're filming her. She's probably taking the day off of work without telling her boss. So we want to try and fix that. We want to make sure that she's obscured in the shot here. Now the old way of doing this would have probably been to duplicate the clip so that you would have to build it in the timeline, which gets messy, right? You end up with duplicate layers. So we want to make this as simple as possible in the sequence. So what I can do now, I'm going to go ahead and select this clip and go to my Effects tab. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose Mosaic. And Mosaic is, a common enough effect. I'll go ahead and double click on it, and you can see this is taking the video and making a bunch of blocks out of it. We'll go ahead and make smaller blocks so we can kind of see what's going on a little bit here, but we're still obscuring. And we're obscuring the entire video right now. Now, if I only wanted to have it apply to a small section of this, again, the old way of doing it would have been to duplicate this layer, apply the effect to the duplicate, crop and trim using kind of the basic controls that were in Premiere again. Check this out. This is an entirely new way of doing things. Now, if you come over here to the effect controls, you'll see that there's these new options here for creating masks within the effect itself. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create an ellipse mask to get started with this. And you'll see that this creates, over in my on-screen controls, I now have a very simple ellipse shape here that I can pick up and I can move it around. And the effect is only affecting the area within the mask. Now I'm going to go ahead and center this on this young lady's face. And I'm going to go ahead and make the mask. And I'm going to make the mask actually just a touch smaller than her face, because I want to take advantage of the next feature that's part of this, which I'll get to in just a second. So there, I've gone ahead and created a mask around her face, and I've kind of obscured her location here. Now, in addition to this, and I'm kind of moving it around a little bit, I'm being a little bit fussy with getting it in position here. I have the ability to expand the mask beyond its borders here, so we'll probably just expand that out a little bit. The reason I made the mask so small around her face is because of these little controls here. We've taken the mask tracker, which was introduced in After Effects back in October of last year, and we've ported that over and added it into Premiere Pro now. We feel it's a really good fit. It's still in After Effects, but we feel it's a really good fit inside of Premiere Pro for editors that need to do this type of work or want to rough out a composition. They can actually draw masks and track them in Premiere. And I'll show you how this interacts with After Effects in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here, and I'm going to just hit the Track Forward button. And you can see the mask is actually tracking across the range of the clip here as she's moving off the screen here. I'll go ahead and stop it as she reaches the edge. And now if I scroll back, you can see that that mask actually stays locked to her face as she's walking across the screen. I can now track in reverse, so we can get her tracking forward across the screen here, just so we have it in both directions here. And we still have full control over this, where I can come in and adjust individual keyframes. You can see that this is generating actual keyframes here in my effect controls. So if I needed to go back and make a modification, I could go to any keyframe, manually pick this up and move it around, and then from there, continue to work with this and continue to track it from that location. And we can track based on position, rotation, and even scale. So if something is coming towards the camera, we could select this bottom option here with scale as one of the properties, and the mask would actually grow in size as the person walks towards the camera. All right. Now, as far as the options here, we do have feathering controls. I can kind of feather this mask. Again, I'll expand it out a little bit so we really kind of obscure her identity there. And if I click off of the clip here, you can now see in the effect control, or see in the program monitor, there's the nice result of the mosaic effect being applied to her face. And if I hit play on the timeline, you can see her kind of walking past with that blur applied, and it's obscuring her identity. Now, what really, really makes this nice and powerful here is if I've done this work in Premiere and I suddenly say, I need additional controls here. I need the ability to maybe do feathering on a per vertex basis, or I want to reuse this mask on multiple areas or multiple clips. I want to convert this into an After Effects mask. Simply right-click on the clip, replace with After Effects composition, and when you do this, this will take your mask that you generated in Premiere and make it a full-fledged After Effects mask with all the additional advanced functionality that's available for masking over in After Effects. So it's now very, very easy for an editor to start the process of kind of roughing out a comp or doing this type of work, and at the same time they have a very easy handoff to send this information so that nothing gets wasted, nothing has to be duplicated over and over again. Okay, really quickly, I'll show the masking over in After Effects in a little bit. I'm going to wrap up on just a couple of the new features inside of Premiere Pro here. We are definitely doing more work with more camera formats, and we continue to push the envelope on what systems are able to do with your existing hardware. One of the new features that we've added new support for some of the new cameras that have come out, things like the Arri Amira, which is a wonderful documentary camera from Arri. We've also added support for formats like Sony STTP, which is another format that's out there. And we've also added lossless cinema DNG from the Blackmagic Pocket camera. So we currently support the original Blackmagic camera as well as the Pocket camera for working with the raw images that have something like 12 to 13 stops of dynamic range that we can work with. If you're working with Red, we've got something really, really important to show you here. I've got a little bit of a timeline here. These are actually clips from a Red digital cinema camera. And if you come over here and you look in the project bin, you'll see that this is a 4K sequence that I'm working with here. It's 4,000 pixels by 2300, so it's a 16 by 9 Red sequence in 4K. Now, in the past, in order to get really good performance of Red footage, you used to have to drop down the dynamic range of your footage. And Premiere has a great way, there's a little shortcut here. We tell you exactly what we're doing here. So by selecting a lower playback resolution, you could get better performance on lower end hardware like a laptop, like what I'm running here today. In the past, doing this meant, I could take this 4K footage and work at maybe quarter res or maybe 1/8 resolution, which is still plenty fast. It's still plenty good enough for doing editorial work. I would just get better performance. I'd get a better frame rate. What we've added in this new version is we've been partnered with Red for quite a long time. I remember doing the first demos with Red footage back during the CS4 days. So we've definitely had a really strong relationship with Red over the years. And we're now using the ability to do the debayering and the decoding of the footage using the graphics card. So for the first time of any NLE, instead of having to rely on like specialty hardware like a Red Rocket card to get this performance, we can now take advantage of the graphics card, the GPU that's in your system. So what this means for me, my laptop can actually do 4K. I can get very, very smooth, very fluid playback of 4K media at half resolution on my laptop. And on a full-blown desktop computer, you can now do full resolution 4K output directly to a 4K monitor without having any specialty hardware, just using an off-the-shelf graphics card. So we're pretty excited about adding this new feature in Premiere. Okay, I am going to jump out of Premiere for a bit. And any questions at this point, again, feel free at any point in time if you guys want to stop me and ask any questions. I will be happy to answer any questions that we might have. The next thing I want to really quickly talk about is the idea of, let me really quickly, we have one question that came up. Do the templates work with Adobe Anywhere? So the short answer is they will. We're currently working with the Anywhere team. First off, just to very quickly make sure everybody understands, Adobe Anywhere is a technology that we showcased a new version of at NAB this year, version Anywhere 2.0. This is an additional technology that we have. It's separate from your Creative Cloud membership. It's something that you can add if you are a larger broadcasting facility or post house, and it enables collaboration between different users. Instead of having local project files, you have a server with a really nice database inside of it that manages everything inside of a production. and that can include After Effects compositions, it can include Premiere Pro sequences, it can include rough cuts from Prelude. All your media, all your bins live in this, and it kind of tracks any changes that people make. It's a really, really nice technology. I recommend you check it out at adobe.com/go/anywhere. You can find out more information about it. The short answer is yes, the idea of master clip effects definitely supported inside of Adobe Anywhere. So when you're in Premiere Pro, if you have an After Effects composition that has a template function built or checked and turned on, you will be able to use that in when you're working in what we call Anywhere mode versus using the apps as standalone mode. Now, I'm going to go back and talk just really briefly about masking. Here I have an example. I've actually sent that clip that we had before over, and I can go ahead and kind of turn some of this on and off here. This is the clip as sent over from Premiere Pro to After Effects. And what we've added inside of After Effects is something new. There's now an option here for any effect within a comp. You'll notice that this mosaic effect, if I go to compositing options, there's a little plus and minus arrow here. I can now select this and I can choose which mask I want this effect to be applied to. So instead of having to have adjustment layers, instead of having to have nested comps and things like that, we've kind of, in After Effects, we've adopted the model of the way masking is now being done in Premiere and kind of brought that over into After Effects as well to sort of help simplify all the different layers that were typically associated with doing these different types of effects. So we now have this ability to, and there's a little indicator here inside the effect controls. This is actually telling me and showing me the color associated with the mask in question here. So you can see mask 1 has a colored icon. I can tell that this is actually being applied to this mosaic effect here. So this whole idea of interoperability between the applications, this is now a full-on After Effects mask. I could now come in here and I could use the pen tool. I could select this mask and start to adjust points on this. I could add or change points. You'll notice instead of being an ellipse shape now, we now have kind of an odd shape here. I can delete points using keyboard shortcuts, or I can start to extend and work with Bezier curve handles here as I'm creating this mask. So just to sort of wrap up on the whole thing with masking and tracking, this is how this currently works. Now, one area that there's been a lot of focus on in After Effects, we see so many people using it for working with blue screen or green screen footage and being able to do chroma keying. And they're always looking for additional tools that can help with working with chroma keying. Now, I've got a number of clips here that you'll see, including here's one with some hair. Now, After Effects has a wonderful tool in it built in called Keylight. And Keylight has actually won an Academy Award for just how good of a keyer it is, how much control that you have inside the tools. Unfortunately, in talking with end users, we found that the nature of really dialing in things like removing the green halo around people, the controls inside of Keylight, if you spent the time and you invest the time in learning how to do it, you can get pretty good results. But again, they're not intuitive controls on how to work inside of Keylight. So what we've done is added some new effects inside of After Effects, and this includes something called the key cleaner. Now, the key cleaner is it's a function of just kind of cleaning up the edges of a key. It's a separate effect, and this will actually work with any chroma keyer. So if you're working with a different type of a plugin and you want to use the key cleaner, it is listed as a completely separate effect. We also have a new effect that we've added, something called the advanced spill suppressor. Now, In order to use this, if you're not using plugins, if you don't already own something like Primat and you just want to use these new effects with your existing plugin, if you want to use Keylight plus the Key Cleaner plus the Spill Suppressor, what I recommend you do is look for something that's actually found as an animation preset. So in the animation presets, you'll notice if I kind of zoom out here a little bit, you'll see that there's something called Keylight plus Key Cleaner plus Advanced Spill Suppressor. This is your ticket for using these three effects. This will automatically stack these three effects in the appropriate way. It'll set up some of the parameters inside of Keylight so that you can do this all correctly. And so basically what I'm going to do is go ahead and use this animation preset, and I'll go ahead and drag it and drop it on here. Now, by doing this, a couple of things that you'll see right away. First off, Keylight is set up and it's automatically placed in the intermediate result mode. That's what we want. We don't want the final result out of Keylight. You'll see that we have the Key Cleaner effect applied, and then we also have the Advanced Spill Suppressor applied. So I'm going to go ahead and start to manipulate Keylight a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and use my little eyedropper tool here, and we'll just go ahead and pull an edge here. And if I turn on and off the Key Cleaner, what this Key Cleaner does is it looks at the edges and it tries to just clean up any of the noise and fringing that's usually found in the edges. It also tries to remove what we call chatter. Chatter is basically where the, how would I describe this? It's basically where your, you might have noise in the shot. You might have situations where the codec that's being used to do the keying is actually a little bit blocky, and so that's creating kind of a pattern of fuzz around the edges. So we've worked hard on this new Key Cleaner. This is something that, again, this was written in-house. We've done side-by-side comparisons with other tools for doing key cleanup, and we feel that this is the industry-leading tool for cleaning up a key. Still works with your existing keyer plugins. It's something that you apply after the fact. Now, Keylight has a number of different results here, including like a final result. This would use the Keylight cleanup tools as well as the Keylight spill suppression tools. So we want to actually turn those off, and you do that by just selecting the intermediate result. Now, spill suppression, you'll notice that this is currently turned off. This lets me kind of use the Key Cleaner as a tool for kind of dialing in exactly how much of the cleanup that I want before I start adding and using the spill suppressor. The spill suppressor, and the idea behind spill suppression is removing areas where that green is still kind of bleeding through, like on a white flower here. If I turn that off, you can see, and I'm not sure how much of this comes through over Connect, but if I set this to 100%, in fact, let me set it to 200% here, kind of pan across the image a little bit, especially in this part of the hair here, we're still seeing a bit of green showing through. When I turn on the Advanced Spill Suppressor, that now looks hair colored. It looks exactly the same as the hair. I'm not getting that green kind of bleeding through into the hair. So any type of transparency or semi-transparency, this really, really helps with. Any questions on these new keying tools, these new filters that have been added in After Effects? Now, there's a number of new things across all the different applications when we talk about new interoperability. If I'm working with text, and this is true with both After Effects and with Premiere Pro, we now have Typekit is actually built into these applications. I can now choose under the title menu. I'll do this in Premiere so we can see this. I can now add fonts from Typekit directly from Premiere Pro, and this will launch the Typekit website, and I can now pick and choose between the desktop use fonts in Typekit. There's tons of additional fonts that are available here, and these are all part of your Creative Cloud membership. So if you need additional fonts, you no longer have to go out and hunt for them. You can click and browse the Typekit library directly from Premiere Pro as well as within After Effects. Something new inside of After Effects as well, Premiere Pro, and one of the things that was showcased a lot at NAB this year was the idea of partner panels that plug directly inside of Premiere Pro. Any of these different panels that you see, this project panel, this is a panel, the timeline sequence is a panel. Basically, it's possible if you have a knowledge of JavaScript and HTML5, you can write panels for Premiere Pro. And we saw dozens and dozens of examples of this on the show floor. Everybody from stock footage companies like Pond5 make drop-in panels for Premiere, to media asset management systems, to even Anywhere actually has a special drop-in panel for Premiere Pro. We now have that same technology for people who use After Effects. So for people who are interested in doing scripting or offering additional content online and they want to have sort of a portal into their website, you can now actually create extension panels, and these extension panels will actually install into After Effects and add additional functionality within After Effects. So the SDK for these is freely available on the developer site at adobe.com. So if you just do a search on partner panels for Premiere Pro, you'll be able to very soon use the same technology using off-the-shelf programming languages like JavaScript and HTML5. You'll be able to write your own panels for these applications. Okay, very quickly before I run out of time here, we've got about 9 minutes. I'm just going to quickly talk about Audition. We're not going to do a big audio demo today, but some of the new features inside of Audition, we now have support for additional multi-track functions inside of Audition. In fact, we've set it up that you can now create your own custom multi-track workflows inside of Audition. So if you need to do audio in 7.1 sound, if you're doing something custom for a particular hall that uses 12.2 as the number of channels you're working with, Audition now has that capability of picking and creating custom channels. The other thing that we've also done is included right inside of Audition, we now license from Dolby. Dolby Digital and Dolby Digital Plus are now actually inside of Adobe Audition. So if you're doing content that uses those formats, you now have an ability to do that directly inside of Audition. And if you're not familiar with the workflow going back and forth between Audition and tools like Premiere Pro, if I come into Premiere and I select a sequence, if I right-click on this, I get the option to send all the audio from that sequence directly over to Audition, and this will even create a preview video file. So if you're currently having to go out to other third-party tools, and we definitely support that with formats like OMF and AAF support built into tools like Premiere Pro. But if you don't have those tools, you wish you did, well, guess what? You do have Adobe Audition as part of your Creative Cloud membership, and we make it very, very easy to send all your audio from Premiere directly over to Audition. Okay, last thing that I need to touch on really quickly here, and I've only got 5 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and open up SpeedGrade here, make sure that I have SpeedGrade running. Something we introduced last year inside of Premiere Pro and SpeedGrade was the idea of being able to send a Premiere Pro sequence directly over into SpeedGrade. We've been working really closely with the team. We want to make this workflow faster, better, and there's been a number of improvements to this. So the basic idea of this, if I select this sequence here in Premiere, I can now go to direct link to Adobe SpeedGrade in the File menu. I'll go ahead and save my changes. And when I do this, oops, getting a little bit of an error here in SpeedGrade. Let me go ahead and open up a different project here just to, again, if it was all working, we'd be shipping it today here. So it's giving me a little bit of an error. Here is an example of a Premiere Pro sequence actually opened up directly. Media is offline on this. Let me try one more of these really quickly here. I'm going to go back to Premiere very quickly here. I'll just reopen this project one more time here to demonstrate this. So here I've got my sequence. I'm going to go ahead and choose File, Direct Link to SpeedGrade, save what I'm doing here. And what you'll see is SpeedGrade is going to launch. And it's very possible that the reason I got that error just now was more operator error. Ah, yes, it was. I had the currently shipping version of SpeedGrade as well as this special new version loaded up on my system. Looks like I clicked the wrong icon on my dock when I got started here. So you'll see here, this is that actual sequence. Even the graphic layers are showing up here inside of SpeedGrade. This is a mixed sequence. All the file formats supported in Premiere Pro are now inside of SpeedGrade. So this is the actual sequence with every layer coming across inside of SpeedGrade. And I can just hit play on this and I can actually have this play out. I can see what's going on. I can even see that like on a couple of these clips, you know, here's where I've actually added some of those master clip color effects here. Like on this clip here, earlier in the day I added that master clip effect. Well, guess what? It got saved. It's now part of that in this different sequence here. SpeedGrade has added the new ability to actually pick and choose between master clip effects and regular clip effects. So if I wanted to turn off the master clip effect that I created in Premiere, I could actually come in here and actually just toggle that off here inside of SpeedGrade. So we have that on a clip-by-clip basis. I can also toggle off individual layers. So if all my graphics, I don't want to see my graphics while I'm doing color grading, I can actually turn those layers off here in my sequence now. And we've continued to add additional performance enhancements. This is something that if you tested out SpeedGrade maybe earlier in the cycle, particularly if you were on a Mac system, there's been a number of performance enhancements since this was released initially. So this gives me the ability to just work real time, even with a mixed timeline with everything from red footage, MXF footage from a number of different cameras, as well as PNGs, video clips with transparency. Some of these are actually using codecs like Apple Animation with an alpha channel. And we're able to actually work with all these different pieces of footage directly inside of SpeedGrade and start the whole process of doing color grading here inside of SpeedGrade. Okay. Very, very quickly from an output perspective, any changes I make in here I can quickly send back over to Premiere Pro. And Premiere would probably be the most logical place to actually go through and export out a sequence like this. So I'll go ahead and send this back to Premiere. I'll go ahead and say save my changes. We're instantly back over inside of Premiere Pro. And thank you. I see some comments about they like the interface improvements. Yeah, there's been a lot of time going through working on the interface as well. I really like how they've implemented the whole master clips and regular clip effects and how you can quickly toggle between the two. The last two things that I very quickly wanted to touch on here before we run out of time, the media encoder has actually added two really important formats. The first format that I wanted to mention is AS11. If you haven't heard of this, if you work in a broadcasting environment, you will very soon. The United Kingdom, all of the broadcasters in the United Kingdom have standardized on this new format called AS11. It's an MXF wrapper with specific codec requirements, and basically, if you're delivering content for broadcast in the United Kingdom, in the next couple of years, you're going to have to do it in AS11 format. So this is now a format that we fully support in the media encoder. So Premiere Pro, After Effects can now output in AS11. The other thing that we've also added is DCP format, and this is the delivery format for digital cinema packages for going out to film festivals, anybody who's trying to output for film. DCP is the format to do that, and we've now added that format in here as well. All right, I am completely out of time at this point. If there are any questions, I will stick around for a bit. Jennifer, did we have some wrap-up, any wrap-up slides to put up on the screen at this point? I can go ahead and stop sharing my screen at this time. We do have a number of different live links on the screen right now. If you go to the pod marked more information on Creative Cloud, you will see a series of different live links in there, including some more information On Adobe TV, you can definitely check out some different videos with some of the different product managers, and you can see what is going on there. All right, I will be around for a bit. If any questions do pop into the chat pod, I will answer them via voice, but otherwise we will wrap up for the time being. Thank you guys for your attendance, and I hope you found this informative.